What if I told you there's one narrow stretch of water that literally has the power to completely crash the global economy? I'm talking skyrocketing fuel prices, massive spikes in your grocery bill, and absolute chaos in the stock market. Well, it's true. A single tiny geographic bottleneck holds the power to squeeze entire economies.
Crazy thing is, you've probably never even heard of it. But this small hidden route quietly carries a massive chunk of the world's oil and trade every single day. When it's flowing, you don't even notice. But the second tension rises around it, total financial panic.
I'm Coach Kobo, your guide to the global economy. Today, we're uncovering exactly what this mysterious place is and how one single trade route quietly controls millions of lives. And trust me, the real impact? It's way bigger than you think.
Let's dive right into Section 1, the world's hidden choke points, revealing the Strait of Hormuz.
So, geographically, the Strait of Hormuz sits right between Iran and the nearby Gulf countries. And despite being incredibly narrow, it is hands down the most important trade route on Earth. Why? Because a staggering amount of the world's oil passes through here every single day. Picture massive, sprawling oil tankers constantly squeezing through this tight space, carrying critical energy supplies to Asia, Europe, America, basically the whole globe. Now, if this route isn't operating normally, that massive global energy supply gets choked off in an instant. And this is exactly where the entire global economy becomes incredibly vulnerable.
Which brings us to Section 2, why oil controls everything, beyond the gas station. To truly understand why this waterway matters, you've got to understand oil. And, there's this huge gap between what people think oil is used for and the actual reality. Most of us just think, okay, cars and petrol stations, right? But the reality? Oil is the absolute lifeblood of factories, commercial farming, airlines, global shipping, and even our electricity. Basically, every major economy on the planet depends heavily on this energy just to function day to day.
So, when oil gets expensive, businesses everywhere immediately get slammed with higher costs. That's why the markets completely freak out whenever there's even a hint of tension around major routes, like the Strait of Hormuz. Investors instantly hit the panic button, fearing supply shortages, surging fuel prices, and a devastating economic slowdown.
Section 3, the economic chain reaction, the domino effect.
When oil prices rise, the effects spread through the economy like a relentless chain reaction. Think of it like falling dominoes. Step 1. Fuel gets expensive. Step 2, because fuel is up, the cost to ship literally anything skyrockets. Step 3, business expenses absolutely surge across the board. Transporting food costs more, airline tickets jump. And finally, Step 4. Companies aren't just going to eat those costs. Nope, they pass them directly on to us. So ordinary people end up footing the bill for everyday things like food, transport, and electricity. And that brutal chain reaction, that leads directly to inflation. And just to be super clear, inflation simply means prices rising over time. This vicious sequence of events is exactly why inflation shoots up the second oil prices jump. Because our modern economies are so deeply intertwined, one single disruption can spread globally like wildfire. What happens next affects millions of people.
So the crucial point here is that global trade relies entirely on these shipping routes. Every single day, a massive fleet of oil tankers, cargo ships, and trade vessels are out there moving goods. Entire countries absolutely depend on this constant flow to import their essential resources, stuff like oil, gas, electronics, food, and industrial materials.
Let's put it into perspective and compare the two scenarios. On a normal route, you've got smooth trade. But if a major route gets risky or disrupted, trade just grinds to a devastating halt. Shipping costs explode, delivery delays go through the roof, businesses struggle to get their inventory, and the whole economy feels this crushing pressure.
And this right here is exactly why the financial markets are practically obsessed with watching strategic routes like the Strait of Hormuz. Because any hiccup there threatens energy supplies, destroys investor confidence, and rocks global stability. And when the market senses a threat, things get turbulent, and I mean fast.
Section 4, why financial markets panic, the fear of uncertainty. Rule number 1 of finance, markets absolutely despise uncertainty. Market uncertainty simply means investors reacting quickly to predict economic problems before they even happen. If investors merely suspect that an oil supply might get disrupted, prices will often surge instantly, based on that fear alone. Seriously, you can see massive spikes in oil prices driven by nothing more than fear and expectations.
And when oil shoots up like that, inflation fears catch fire instantly. Central banks start getting cautious, businesses get super nervous, and everyday consumers pull back on spending, all before a single actual physical shortage has even occurred. That is the terrifying power of expectations in finance.
Finally, Section 5. How it affects you. The real-world impact. You might be wondering how all this high-level macroeconomic data actually hits your wallet. Well, the answer is brutally. High oil prices bring some harsh microeconomic realities straight to your front door. We're talking surging grocery bills, painful electricity costs, and way weaker purchasing power. Your hard-earned money just doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Plus, businesses facing these costs, they start hiring fewer workers, they scrap their expansion plans, or they just keep jacking up their prices even more.
The big, hidden takeaway here is just how deeply, incredibly connected our global economy really is. One single trade route, one distant conflict, or a sudden spike in oil can trigger shockwaves that slam into markets, businesses, governments, and ordinary households all over the planet. It just goes to show, sometimes a tiny, distant place can wield enormous economic influence.
So, I've got to ask, before watching this explainer, did you realize one narrow stretch of water could dictate so much of the global economy? It's honestly mind-blowing that a single geographic choke point holds the power to dictate global inflation and completely drain your personal wallet.
If you found this video helpful, hit the like button and subscribe to Deez Finance for more simple videos about money, finance, and the global economy. Stay informed, stay focused, and I'll see you in the next one.